Good morning and welcome to Cover 2 Cook. We are on episode 81. We're going to be talking about the Combine as we are recapping what happened in the NFL Combine. Your boy truly did a Combine as well. Also, what's happening in the NFL. And then we're going to finish with the Mount Rushmore of running backs of all time in the NFL. But before I get too far, let me bring on my co-host, Mr. Tim Cook. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. We had a good weekend of the combines and your individual combine, which got a good laugh out for everybody. And we're in that kind of a stage where we're kind of waiting for the draft come April.
Yeah, I definitely agree. You kind of have some news with the franchise tag today. We're recording on Monday. Franchise tag happens at like 3:30 or 4 or whatever crap like that. And then, which didn't kind of have like a big spectacular day of franchising tag. But then you also have like the combine time. You're like, oh, let's see the best of the best combine. Not really. I mean, it really wasn't the combine that you expect. A lot of players wait for their pro day like we've talked in the past. Or they say, hey, my film has done enough. So either you draft me or you don't. But I laugh at the people that come but don't compete. Like Cam Ward was there, Shedeur Sanders was there, but then they don't compete. But I think the biggest takeaway from this weekend was Abdul Carter's foot injury. Not having the surgery, talking about it, whether he should have the surgery. What did you think about that one?
Yeah, there's a lot up in the air with this because there's difference of opinion on how his foot's going to react. Yeah. We've got opinions where he doesn't know what. It might scare some people off. He was projected number one pick in this draft this year, and it may scare some people off.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, we saw the guy with one arm go against Notre Dame, and the dude looked indestructible. The problem with the foot between the arm, though, is you need the foot to be able to play the way you did. I think it's one of these ones where it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You need to draft him because he is probably he's definitely the best defensive player coming out of this draft, but he might be one of the most athletic people coming out of this draft. We saw what his gameplay is, but is this going to be a longevity injury? Like, is this going to cause the career to end early? That was a lot. He had to speak to a lot of that over this weekend.
Right. Yeah, and that's it. You're going to be spending quite a bit of money on these number one draft. A first round draft pick. You want to know what you're going to get. You don't want to get damaged goods before he's even one snap in the NFL.
No, definitely agree. Another conversation that was brought up over the week. I'm not going to do the whole Shedeur Sanders talking about it with my last name and all this other doubt. Mm-hmm. The biggest question that was also brought up was, what position is Travis Hunter going to play? Because this man is out here saying, I can play both sides of the ball. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. But 1 second. College and NFL are two different ball games here. What position do you think he will end up playing, or do you think he'll play both?
I think they're going to... there's 80, 90 snaps in an NFL game.
Yeah.
I can see him playing. I think he plays wide receiver. It depends on who he gets drafted by.
Yeah.
If he gets drafted by New England, then I can see him playing wide receiver because they really need somebody at wide receiver. They've got their back in with Gonzalez. I think he'll be in his second year playing back in the backfield. I don't think they need anybody back there, but I think he's going to do some plays back there. But I think he's going to play wide receiver. I really do.
Yeah, I think this optimism of playing both sides of the ball is great. I just think, like, when you look at it, I mean, A.J. Brown was on a podcast saying he can play both sides of the ball, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to chew him up and spit him out if he plays D. Because I get it, you're in great shape, but these guys are going all out, and they are the best of the best. And do not tell me that there wasn't plays on film that didn't show when he is tired. I mean, come on, man. Come on. It's just a lot to do both of them. I think he eventually ends up playing DB. I think he's better fitted for a DB position. I think he could be a good wide receiver, but I think defensive back is a position where if I can count on you, it takes off so much relief on that defense. I mean, think about Revis Island, and think about what the defense of the Broncos this past year when they had is it Surtain? Yeah.
Surtain, yeah.
Yeah, Surtain. When they have him and when they don't have him, it just helps the rest of the team to know that when he's on an island, don't worry about it. Do not worry about him having to be. So I think he plays DB. If he's going to be that guy, I can also see him starting DB, not being able to play at the level he should be, going to wide receiver.
Yeah, I think he's got to. I don't know. I think it's going to be third place. He's not going to do like he did in Colorado, where he's playing both sides for
Yeah.
80, 90% of the time. He's not going to be able to do that. His body is going to give away eventually. You can do it for so long, and I think his body will break down.
Well, and this was something that was
Playing
brought
that
up.
way.
I don't know what podcasts I watched, but it was brought up too of, do you even want a player like that? Because if he does get injured, now you got to replace two spots.
Right.
Where if he gets injured at wide receiver, you have to replace one wide receiver. You have to replace one DB. But if he gets injured and he's in your starting lineup, that's two people now that got to step up in this game that were not expected to play in this game. That's a lot of as well. There was some guys that made a splash in the combine though. One of them I wanted to bring up was Amarian Hampton, running back out of North Carolina. Genty doesn't do it, right? Genty doesn't do the combine. So what kind of running backs are we going to see? You got Watkins out of Ohio State. You had Henderson out of Ohio State. You got the one out of Michigan. You got some guys out of places. But Amarian Hampton, 4.46 40-yard dash, damn near close to what my 40-yard dash was. 38-inch vertical. The guy's built like a brick. I just see him like a bowling ball in the NFL. I think he's short. He's not a big guy. I just think the way that he kind of ran was what brought us to the question was, how fast can he go? And if he can get up to that kind of speed, that's another scary one. Did anyone else catch your eye from the draft this weekend?
One that I was kind of shocked on was the tight end for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
He looked really good. I seen a couple of drills on him. He looked really good and fast. And there was a lot of the commentators that were talking about him, and they were really talking him up. He looked really good.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, Notre Dame's been known for tight end bringing in a lot with their offensive line as well. My biggest thing wasn't he injured? Didn't he have an injury early in the year, or was it last year?
Yeah, he had an injury this year. Yep.
Yeah, and it just caused us not to see the type of gameplay that we thought we were going to see from him. Another guy that kind of caught my eye was this Nick Amawori. I'm going to apologize right there. I don't know how to say his last name, from safety from South Carolina. Listen to this, all right? 6'3", 220 pounds. Looks like he's padded up.
Right.
Wearing a t-shirt. Looks like he's wearing pads. Runs has a 43-inch vertical.
Wow.
11-foot, 6-inch broad jump. Number one amongst players. The dude was flying around. They said that second round, maybe early second round. They were like, now he might go to. They could see him going late first round, middle first round, because his numbers are huge. Now my problem with this is everyone gets oohed and ahhed and stuff like that about these numbers. Now let's go watch this film again. Let's go back and watch the film, because you can do great on these tests, but can you play the game as well? Is it in the mind too? That was another one that caught my eye. Did you have another one that caught your eye?
The kid from Louisville, Tyler Show.
Yeah.
He looked really good. They said he was looking really good. Jackson Dart looked really good.
Yep.
He was throwing the ball around. The only one that didn't look good was the kid from Ohio State, overthrowing balls, not looking really good. The QB for Ohio State.
Yeah, I feel like that's Will Howard. I feel bad for him at the same time, because you're coming off this national championship. A lot of people are doubting you. I think it's a lot of pressure, but let's just not act like this guy can't win. Like, I mean, he just took his team to the national championship. He had a lot of great weapons, don't get me wrong, going into the NFL where you're probably not, but he's not a number one overall pick. So he might go to a decent team. I mean, does he slip down to the Steelers and Steelers go get him? Is he a team that, says, we know our quarterback eventually is going to go, we need him, Right. But that Tyler Shaw, I mean, only quarterback to run a 40-yard dash, but it helps when Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders aren't throwing the ball. Then you have these other quarterbacks stand out. Jackson Dart definitely did look better. I think we also kind of forget how that end of the year ended, when he had 3 interceptions and 4 passes for one of their final games. The other player that caught my eye was Matthew Golden. So everyone going into this combine was like, I think his name is Isaiah Bond. Yeah.
Yes.
The wide receiver for Texas. They're like, man, he's going to run the 40-yard dash. He's going to be so fast. Right. Matthew Golden runs the fastest 40-yard dash, ran a 4.29. I was like maybe 30 minutes off from that time. Jiminy, criminy, that's so fast. I see that just joining a lot of teams, right? When we see a Tyreek Hill, we see Xavier Worthy, we see these players that can bring a different aspect to the offense.
Right.
That's where, if I'm him, I'm being like, I'm hoping that you kind of go either late first round or you slip into middle second round. You don't want to be one of these first ones because you don't know who your quarterback's going to be, what you're going to deal with. But if you can get a quarterback that can chuck that ball down the field a little bit, he's gone. I thought that was a great performance by him.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think they said, there was a lot of comparison to this Golden to Xavier Worthy.
Yeah.
I mean, because of speed and everything, you can use him out of the backfield. He looked really good in the combine. Really good.
I know that the Oregon wide receiver, I can't think of his name right now.
Tez Johnson?
Yeah, they talked really bad. His 40-yard dash was really bad. Really? They're thinking the pro day it'll help out. So we'll have to see about that. But that was a combine. Obviously, if you haven't tuned in as well, yours truly did a combine. 40-yard dash. Tennis shoes, people. Tennis shoes. And 31 years old, okay? Tune into that. A lot of funny humor in there as well. I did a bench press. Not that bad. Did the vertical. I'm pretty sure I jumped over the fence. That's how high I got. And then agility, that's my thing all day. Had a lot of fun with it. Definitely tune in. It's on all the social medias. But what is also happening in the NFL? Huge news. Huge news. Deebo Samuel gets traded for a 5th-round draft pick. What'd you think about that one?
Yeah, they pretty much just gave up on him. I think they're unloading salary in San Francisco to pay Purdy, which I don't get. I don't get why they're. I wouldn't give him $50 million. I'm sorry, I would not. Yeah. I would not give him $50 million. He's and now there's talk that Ayuk might be on the trading block. CMC's coming back from an injury. There's a lot of doubts in there. You got other players on the defense. There's just a lot of doubts in San Francisco right now.
Yeah, I just didn't understand the NFC, right? Like, I would have understood the trade because you gotta open up cap space. I get it. And you don't want to be a team in the NFL that ain't got a quarterback because those teams don't usually do too well. So I get that one. I guess just trading him to a team that was one win away from going to the Super Bowl? Yeah. Like, where was the thought process in that? Like, San Francisco, if you want to get back to where you were, you're probably going to have to go through a team like this. That one just didn't make sense. It honestly reminds me of the Stephon Diggs situation last year where he goes to Houston after Houston looked like they were going to be good. And it was like, what are you doing? Why are you allowing this to happen? Outside of that, too, Deebo, if you can stay healthy, you got a really good situation there. But you got to stay healthy.
Yeah. Well, now come to find out, he said today that he was 10 pounds overweight the whole season.
Yeah.
Boy, yeah, if you're carrying an extra 10 pounds, your body's going to break down eventually. I mean, he is so thick and so and an extra 10 pounds. They said that they may put him on I was watching a show. They may put him on a strict diet kind of deal and fine him if he ain't within this weight limit. If they set up a weight limit, they can fine him up to almost $800 per pound per day if Washington decides to go with this.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Since now he just blew out and said that I was 10 pounds overweight.
Yeah, I highly doubt it. I doubt they'll do it because why upset a superstar that just came there? Sam Reddick. Did everyone just forget about that? Yeah. When he came and he didn't play because they didn't get what he wants? No, they're not going to do that. I will say, though, if Washington wants to give me a call and get me on it and get, right. Help me eat that way, I'm down for it because 10 pounds and what problem with that? Okay. Your boy be doing more than 10. Damn near add another 0. But I think when you look at it, like Deebo definitely has to. I think with the McLaurin, you got the quarterback there, that offensive coordinator. Yeah. It's a great situation going into. I'm just afraid that they might have blown their load this year, and we'll see what this next year looks like. But it's a great start to offseason with grabbing someone like that.
Yeah. Also, too, you know what, too, Anthony? Here's the deal, too. Now you're loading up offense. They kind of struggled on defense last year. Yeah. So I mean, that's something that maybe they can shoe up in the draft, but they need more defense than they do offense. I think their offense is fine with McLaurin, maybe getting a running back in the draft, but they got to get some kind of defense. So push up front because they got exposed big time from the Eagles in that championship game. Exposed. That front line got exposed.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But what we talk about, Eagles went and did it by drafting. Yeah. So maybe the Washington thinks they could do it the same way.
Gotcha.
Other news, Stafford staying with the Rams. Obviously, as a Vikings fan, I was hoping maybe they throw it out that way to Minnesota. I'll take Stafford. I don't care how old he is. I'll take Aaron Rodgers. I don't care who I take. I just don't want the old man, or not the old man, but I just don't want the other one back again. But Stafford staying with the Rams. Obviously, that all works out for them. The coach, I can't think of his name right now. McVay, super excited. Now he's talking about maybe we'll keep Cooper Kupp as well too. Maybe he'll stay as well. So all this news for nothing. What do you think about that?
Yeah, they're talking maybe that Kupp, if he comes back, he's going to take a hell of a lot less money.
Oh yeah,
and also too maybe I think he's going to stay, but they also said by him restructuring that would help out maybe trading him to somebody else.
Yeah,
maybe somebody would take his salary, but I don't see if they're going to restructure. I did see a meme where well, I see that you didn't get any offers. And he goes, no, I didn't. Okay, well, go ahead and sign your contract over here on the right. It's just, it was funnier now.
Well, and I think there's teams that were looking at Stafford, but they just didn't want to take all that money on.
Right.
And I think that's,
yeah.
Well, and then you're looking at the Cooper Kupp situation as well, too. Let's also remember that playing against the Eagles, if it isn't a snowy game, I think they come back and win that game against them.
Yeah.
That was the closest game for the NFC, for the Eagles for that playoff run. I mean, let's also not forget that they just blew out the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl either. So, franchise tag is today. It's Monday. So we have the franchise tag. T. Higgins finally officially tagged. Outside of that, they do talk about either doing a long-term contract with him. I think if you're the Bengals, you got to figure a way to make this. I know we've talked about this in the past. You got to do something. Joe Burrow needs his weapons. And with Joe Burrow having all the injury problems he's had so far in this career, I think you got to get it while it's hot. Get him who he wants. Try to see if it works out. You were one play, maybe a quarter away from winning a Super Bowl against the Rams not too long ago. Got to get back to those glory days. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a Band-Aid. This is the second year. I don't know how many times you can franchise tag somebody. I think it's 3. 3 years in a row you can franchise tag them. I'm not for sure. I mean, I have to look it up, but their problem is on defense. Yeah. If they don't sign this Hendrickson, I mean, you can score 50 points, but you might give up 55 points.
Yep.
So I mean, that's the biggest deal is they've got to get and stop with the slow starts. Can't start 2-4. I'm sorry, you just can't.
Well, and then speaking of slow starts, talk about a fast start here. Saquon, huge year, over 2,000 or at 2,000 yards rushing. Could have went for the record, but he got that payday, gets all that money. What'd you think about that one?
I thought that that he deserved it. He's the one that drove that team last year. I mean, if it isn't for him, I don't see him, winning the Super Bowl. Definitely not. I think he pushed them over the top. I think it was well deserved. I did read where the cap hit isn't by extending them. The cap hit isn't quite as hard on the team. So now they can go out and get other people or re-sign other people. So I think it's a win-win for Philadelphia.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised they're letting that Braun, the defensive player, kind of go away. But Saquon needed it. You knew after, you just don't want to get to a situation anymore now. After seeing what the Giants went through with all this bullshit, you bring them in, you got the offensive line for it, and you have the year that you have, why not? I mean, the man, like you said, deserves it. He gets a Super Bowl out of it, too, so let's remember that. But, he deserves that money. What did you say? It's $20 million a year or something like that, first running back to get that kind of money? Well deserved. I think, and I think a lot of people would say, best running back in the league as of today.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Yeah, there's hands down. I mean, you rush for 2,000 yards. I mean, you can't.
Well, I think you got a close second with Derrick Henry. I mean, because you got to think of all the Lamar rushes that Derrick Henry would have had. Because this year we didn't see Jalen Hurts take off as much as we had in the past because he had to. Yeah. Yep. And sad news, Jimmy Johnson is retiring from Fox broadcast. Honestly, super sad. But if you do watch the Fox, it did feel like it was getting a little too crowded at the table. I mean, I think they've brought on Gronk. You got Strahan on there now. It just felt like it was just getting a little too compact in there. But, I mean, it's sad to see him go, but you know who the next one's going to be eventually, and that's Terry. Terry's going to be gone eventually too.
Yeah.
But what do you think about this one?
Yeah, it was kind of sad. He's one of the first OGs on
Yep.
that. They started all of them group except for Strahan is the one that started it back in '94.
Yeah.
So 31 years ago, they all started. He's a great coach. He has analysis. I mean, there's people that have come up and said they've talked to him, and he'll sit down and talk to them X's and O's. Very, very, not snooty or anything. Very well liked. I mean, he'll give you anything you want, as far as information. But yeah, he's part of the OGs. I mean, and there's still today that Fox pregame is number one still to this day.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's and he was a hell of a coach. I didn't like him because he was, a friend of mine is a Dallas fan, and he just thought he was the world. And he could have coached more Super Bowls if Jerry would have let him.
Yeah, I definitely agree. He's kind of like the Lee Corso of College Game Day, right? Yeah. I think Terry is up there with it as well too. It's just one of those guys where you're like, when they go, it's going to be different, right? It's going to be different not seeing Jimmy Johnson on there, but you kind of saw the writing on the wall. There was a little bit more of this year where he was on his boat and he wasn't at the studio, and it was like, go enjoy it, man. You've given the game all that you've needed to with your coaching, with your expertise. I just go enjoy it now. Go watch a Sunday without having to be an analyst. Yeah. Just go enjoy watching, being a fan. But it will be a little bit sad. I hope they do a little thing on that the first Sunday coming back. They do something for him because, like you said, he's an OG, but he brought a lot of funny moments to that show as well.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And you could kind of tell. I guess they were interviewed during the Super Bowl in the pregame, and he was like, "Are you coming back next year?" And he goes, "One day at a time."
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, So he had some reservations right then and there that you kind of knew that maybe this was his last one.
Well, and I think, and just to finish it up, but I think at some point why don't you want to be a fan? Like, you know what I mean? Why can't I just go and watch a game if he wants to watch the Cowboys, he can watch the Cowboys. If he wants to watch whoever he wants to watch, he can watch them without having to be so monotoned on who he's favoritism in. But that brings us to our Mount Rushmore. So last week we did the Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks. It's only fitting to the players that they hand the ball off to, the Mount Rushmore of the running backs of NFL careers. First off, we're going to go one at a time. I'm going to let you go first, and I'm going to go, who's your first one?
Emmitt Smith, all-time leading rusher of all time. In history, 18,000 yards. Offensive Rookie of the Year back in 1990. And, 8 Pro Bowls in his career. I mean, you'll notice in these top 4 how many Pro Bowls and all pros they were. And you know that these are the elite of the elite.
Yeah, this one I felt like running backs was harder than quarterbacks. I really did. Because I think there's different types of running backs compared to the quarterbacks just been the quarterback position. Now, I know we got some flack on social media about the quarterback position because they were like, well, there's different. Yes, I'm talking about a pocket quarterback. When we talk about running backs, are you going to talk about the guy that out-jukes you? You're going to talk about the guy that runs you over? You're going to talk about the guy that runs away from you? Right. My first one that I brought up was LaDainian Tomlinson. Growing up and watching LT play was just absolutely amazing. Obviously, single season rushing record, consecutive games with a touchdown. If that ball was in his hands, he could go to the house every single time. Right. And he didn't have the team around him. I mean, Antonio Gates, yes. Phillip Rivers, yes. But outside of that, that running attack was scary. And that was back when you could start seeing the transition into a passing league. So I think LaDainian Tomlinson has to be up there. Who do you got for your second one?
Also, too, LaDainian Tomlinson also played for the Jets towards the end of his career. And he still had 1,000-yard rushing for the Jets as well. So, I mean, he played for multiple teams for multiple years. Second one, Walter Payton. The sweetness. Yep. I mean, there's just no – I mean, he's now the second – he was the leading rusher of all time before Emmitt Smith broke it. He won the MVP in 1977. Offensive Player of the Year rushing. He had 1,551 yards and 9 touchdowns. And his nickname's the sweetness. You can't. This guy – I think did get, and I think most Bears fans will agree with me. God, he needed that touchdown in the Super Bowl. His only Super Bowl he ever made it, and he didn't score a touchdown. They give it to the fridge. God, he deserved it. I mean, he had a lot of shit teams. Pardon my friend. He had a lot of crappy teams, and that was one he had to have. And it was just, I mean, just run over people, just knock them over. He didn't run out of bounds. He ran over them.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Walter Payton's on my list as well. And these are not my top four, like number 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are just my top 4. But I definitely agree. I think Walter Payton's got to be up there because of the tenacity he brought to the running back position. Like, he just didn't run out of bounds. He would take you on and try to go with you. I think also you think about all the times where he put his hand down and just find a way to stay without getting on the ground, get a couple more yards. It changed what I feel like, and there's a lot of other players that we'll speak about too, like Jim, and other players as well. But when you talk about someone that like changed it, I mean, if you look at Adrian Peterson, that's got a little descent of Walter Payton's game, right? He wanted to run you over. He didn't want to I'll outrun you, but I want to run you over first. I think when you talk about Walter Payton too, if you are a Chicago Bear fan, that's just your guy. I mean, that's the guy. And this living in Illinois, everyone wanted to be Sweetness. Everyone wanted to juke like him, but then also lower that shoulder when it came time to lower it. I definitely agree with that one as well. Who do you got for your third on the list?
Jim Brown. Jim Brown named a Pro Bowler for all 9 seasons he played. He was named Pro Bowler. He also ran for 1,000 yards in the 10 seasons he played, 1,000 yards every year.
Yep.
I mean, that's just unheard of, and that's it. 3-time MVP. He brought Cleveland its only championship in 57 and held the scoring record for rushing yards and touchdowns for decades. Also, he was an actor in a great movie, if anybody gets a chance to see, The Dirty Dozen. He was an actor in that, and he played that role. He played it very good. I think he's an OG as well.
Yeah, I mean, his football career is definitely a lot better than his acting career. Let's just say that.
Oh man, I don't know, man. He was good at Dirty Dozen, man.
Yeah, but I think when you talk about Jim Brown, you just talk about a different era where people were not worried about the pass. I mean, yes, do not get me wrong, they were passing, but it wasn't like the Tom Brady, the Peyton Manning, just the different type of game. Defenses were built to stop the run. That's when you have the curtains and stuff like this, right? They would stop the run. And this man, didn't matter when or what time, wherever you put the ball at, he was going to run you over or outrun you. I mean, it was just, it's, even if he played in today's game, he would be as dominant as he was then. And I think that's what put you in the Rushmore, is like just the physicality that he had during the time he played. I definitely think he's got to be in the Mount Rushmore. So we got 2 out of the 3. Let's see if we get the last one the same one as well. Who do you got for your last one?
Oh, let's see here. Oh, wait a minute. I don't know. I don't. You know what? One person, he's also a Bear, Gale Sayers.
Okay.
I think he gets not enough credit. I mean, that guy, he had a couple of knee injuries, and he would have been really good. I think he's really good. He had a good running fullback in Piccolo, and then they ended up moving him to running back, and I think he would have been a really good one as well.
Yeah, I definitely saw that on some lists as well. For my fourth, I took Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders has got to be the number 4 in this one. 2 MVPs, 4 rushing titles, and on just subpar teams. I mean, I'm glad to see that he's getting to kind of see the Detroit Lions and their little bit of run that they've had. I wish we could get to see him, maybe make it to the Super Bowl. But when you talk about the running back position, I said the Walter Payton putting his hand down and getting those extra yards. There'd be times where a huddle of people are just sitting there, and then Barry Sanders would just find his way outside of it and go for the house. It was exciting. It was just, and I think that's why I took away LaDainian Tomlinson on there as well, is because it was just running backs where, when they get the ball, you're like, anything could happen. Right. Anything could happen. Now, before anyone gets in my DMs and all that other shit, I am not saying Barry Sanders and LaDainian Tomlinson are the same running backs, okay? Barry Sanders is on a platform of himself. Yep. But when you talk about it, look at the running backs in today's game. They all come from what Barry Sanders did with the agility, because it wasn't just running people over. It was the jukes. It was the running backward. I mean, he was just untouchable at that time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, he was the epitome of, you think you got him, and then you don't got him. And then he would juke with you and take it right out of your shoes.
Yep.
So, I mean, that was the biggest deal, was that he might run 10 yards, but he ran really for 40. because he would run this way. He'd run to your right, to the left, and then turn around. And if he just had a better team around him, I mean, that one year when they went to I think the NFC Championship, it's just he didn't have a very good game against the Redskins. I mean, or now the Commanders, but there was the Redskins back then.
But they were.
Yes. And, he just didn't have a very good team around him. They just wouldn't put any money towards it. The Ford family was tight.
Yeah. I think some honorable mentions on this one as well as Marshall Faulk. I just think when you talk about the elusiveness and obviously the greatest show on turf, don't believe that's what it is. I think the Vikings were the best show on turf, but that's another point. Right. Eric Dickerson, having the 2,000 rushing yards. Adrian Peterson having the 2,000 rushing yards. I just, growing up being a Vikings fan, watching Adrian Peterson kind of run the ball the way he did, it was like, damn. You know what I mean? Eric Dickerson, I think you got Earl Campbell up there, the late, O.J. Simpson. I think you got some other ones. But I think there's some guys that in the league now, I mean, that you can kind of give an approach for. Is Derrick Henry going to finish his career? And you're going to talk about him. I think physically looking at him, he might be one of the best running backs of all time physically. Right. Unfortunately, when you sit, how many years in Tennessee, it doesn't help your case. No. What about Saquon? We just get to the money. You're talking about Saquon in there. Outside of that, it's going to be hard for a running back to get into this kind of talk because they don't run the ball like they used to. Hopefully that changes as time goes on, though.
Another one, maybe an honorable mention, Franco Harris for Pittsburgh. Yeah. He was a hell of a running back in the 70s and 80s. He was a really good running back as well. So, I mean, that was another one that I think he rushed for almost 10,000 yards too. So, but here we go again. Look at the team he was surrounded by. It would be easy for him to be a good runner.
Yeah, and I saw some other ones like Tony Dorsett and things like that. That one's a little bit hard. Thurman Thomas and things like that. But I think with our 4, I think it's pretty solid. 5 and with your other one as well, Gale Sayers. But that wraps up our Mount Rushmore. That actually wraps up episode 81. As we come back on Friday, we'll be doing the trivia. We'll see if there's any other news happening in college football, college sports, or anything that's happening in the NFL. You might see a little bit of who's going where as free agency starts next week. So you're kind of starting to hear the rumors. Let's be honest. All they've done is talked. They just got to sign the piece of paper starting next week. It'll be a lot of heyday starting next week. We'll talk about the free agency and who might be going where. But we want to thank all our fans. If you like what we do, go on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all of them. But we truly appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week, and we will talk to you on Friday.